everyone, so we are in early August, and even though it always comes right after July, I'm somehow always shocked how quickly August gets here. But today I'm going to tour you around my front deck garden and show you how everything looks. So as a quick recap, my deck is 3 stories up. It is 18 by 19 square feet, and everything I grow is in containers. So July was definitely a lot of growth happening with the plants. It's also the month when it seems like all the pests decided to realize I had a garden here. I didn't lose anything completely to pests, but I have seen some budworms, some beetles. What else have I seen? Aphids are gone, luckily, but it's definitely more of me keeping an eye on the garden for pests than it was in June. We also had interesting weather, a lot of rain all at once, and then periods of dry weather. So it's definitely been an interesting July. Looking forward to see what August brings. I expect a lot of these plants to possibly even double in growth. So let me go take you around and I'll show you how everything is looking. Let's start off in my center raised bed. This is the largest of all of my raised beds. All of my wooden raised beds are from Grownomics, and most of them are about 3 feet off the ground, which makes gardening very easy. So in the center here, I have 3 different colors of the Cinderella zinnia variety, and then planted below it, which I always have in this same spot ever since I've had this garden, is the Supertunia Vista bubblegum. There is one in each corner, and then I have the Supertunia Mini Vista Scarlet here in the center. And I've planted a few different plants in between the Supertunia Vista bubblegum in the past. This is the only one that has kept up with the vigor. So it's Supertunia Vista Mini. So the flowers on it are a little bit smaller compared to the regular Supertunia Vista, but the vigor I have been very happy with, because typically whatever I plant there just gets swallowed up by the bubblegum petunias. So these have done really well. I have seen a few budworms so far, so I'm still on the lookout for those. And then in the center here, like I said, are the Cinderella zinnias. So I, again, ever since I've had this garden, have planted zinnias in the center, the petunias around. This is my first year, though, just doing all of the Cinderella variety. And I really like this variety because it looks kind of playful and open versus some of the other zinnias, which are more compact. I love them all, but I really like how these look. So this is the Cinderella Peach zinnia. Try not to bother the pollinators too much here. This is Cinderella Purple. You see that little bee back there? That bee is on the Cinderella Red. Here is one that's a little bit old looking. Actually doesn't look that bad, but I've been harvesting these like crazy. This is where I get most of my flowers from that I put into my bouquets, and I already know what I'm going to do in this bed next year, but that'll be for a later video. It'll still be the combination of zinnias and petunias, just different variety of zinnias for next year, but I will have these somewhere else in my garden. Then coming down here in front, I have 2 different pots. I did have 3 pots. One of them is moved over there because this area doesn't get a lot of sun. It probably gets the least amount of sun on this deck because the sun comes from behind where I'm standing right now, and then it's over there, so it shines in this direction. So these get sun maybe in the late morning, early afternoon, and then as the sun continues to go behind the wall over there, this bed blocks the sun. So I did move one of those pots just to give it a more full sun situation. But here in this container, I have the Superbells Prism Pink Lemonade. This is one of my favorites for this season. I saw a photo of it last year and knew I wanted it in my garden this year. And it just has a combination of pink blooms, yellow blooms, and then some that have both pink and yellow on them. I think Pink Lemonade is the perfect name for this plant. I also have here, which is kind of getting swallowed up, is Nemesia. This is the A Romance Mulberry Nemesia. They were doing great, I would say, early summer. Like, they were definitely the stars of the show. As summer's gone on, they've kind of faded a bit, but they're still doing really well. And then in the back here, I have the Rockin' Blue Suede Shoes Salvia. I have 5, I think, different salvia in the garden this year. They're just doing fantastic. They bloom like crazy. Ever since I planted them, the bumblebees love them. They will get right up into those flowers right there. I think the hummingbirds also love them too. I've had a few hummingbirds visit my garden this year, which has been really exciting. But I love these two because they are a really true blue color flower. I don't think I've ever had something that's this royal blue in my garden for a flower. So I really love it. And then the final thing in the bed here is the lantana, and this is the Luscious Citrus Blend. I feel like that's one of those tongue twisters to say 3 times fast. Luscious Citrus Blend. But this has done really well. I wasn't sure how it would do in the container with the other plants because typically lantana don't need as much water as some of these other ones, but they've done really well. I'd say this pot gets water every other day right now, and the lantana is looking exceptionally happy. Then coming over here, I just trimmed these in a recent video, so they are starting to bounce back. These are the Hoopla Vivid Orchid Petunias. These are new for 2024. Again, I think these are everyone's favorite. Everyone that I know is growing them, is absolutely in love with them. So they have that bright purple, which leans more towards like a warm purple, surrounded by the white on the edges of the petunia. So those have just been really lovely. I like kind of coming out to the doors and seeing these as one of my favorite flowers. So I'm definitely going to have these in my garden next year. Then behind the pretty part of that pot, it's a little bit of a mess, but you know, not too terrible. So I have the Super Balls double yellow right there. There's a few popping out. The petunias definitely took over this pot a little bit. I have another one of the A Romance Mulberry Nemesia. And then there's this. So this begonia was in a pot with the Silver Wave Petunia, which completely took over everything else that was in there. So I pulled it out. I just plopped it in here maybe less than a week ago to see what it would do. And then I forgot to water it. So the root ball was really small because, again, the petunia had taken over. And when I put it in here, I maybe went like 2 days without water because these are no longer on drip because I was having some issues with root rot. But I think I might have killed it. I'm going to leave it there for now though, because if you just look from here, it doesn't look like there's a dead begonia. So that's fine with me for now. I'll see how that goes. Now coming over to my flower cart next. This is one of my favorite parts of the garden, although my garden's not that large, so really everything's one of my favorite parts. But this has turned out so well. I first got this cart last year from Deer Park Ironworks. And last year was kind of my first year playing around with what plants I wanted on it. And I feel like this year I just did even better. There's even more color. They're even more drapey and flowy than the plants here last year. So let me show you what I have growing in here. Now, the very first thing is this petunia, which I've forgotten the name of. It was originally planted downstairs. Even though it probably wasn't getting enough sun, I knew that going into it. I wanted to see how it would do. It got very leggy, stretching, trying to find some sunlight, so I cut it all the way back, no blooms on it, moved it out here, and within a week, it looked like this. So I absolutely love this. I love the color of it. I do know it was from the Ball Horticultural Pack, but I can't remember the name of this one. Then, in the back here, I have the Clowning Around Caladiums. I kind of put these in here as the last piece of this, but I knew I wanted something back there, but it obviously needs to be able to tolerate shade because the Morning Glory are completely covering the cart. So these have just done fantastic. And nothing here on this cart is set up on drip. So this is one of the parts that I do have to hand water. This I usually water about once every other day, and that seems to be working out well. In the flower box right in front, there were 3 different types of petunias. 2 died. This was the flower box where I think I had the poor quality dirt from Home Depot. It wasn't drained very well. So I popped the 2 out that were completely dead, and I left this one right here, which I'm glad this one lived because it was my favorite. But this is the Sweet Sunshine Magenta Sky Petunia, also new for 2024, and I'm excited. I think next year, if I get my hands on this one and the Hoopla Vivid Orchid, I'd love to try to put them together because they are the same color scheme but very different looking flowers. So I would love to try that out next year. And then here I just replaced the 2 petunias that I pulled with a Calibrachoa. I believe the shade was grape. I can't remember what company it was from. But I'm hoping that gets a little bit larger before I have to pull all these in. Oh, I can't believe that we're in August, so it's really just a couple more months that I get to hang out with these flowers. I guess I haven't even shown the morning glory yet, but this is what it looks like. So there's one plant in a pot on this side, one plant in a pot down here on this side. I think you can see the remnants of some blooms there. Usually I have blooms early in the morning. They've been white so far. The mix that I'm growing is a mailbox mix that I got from, I think, Chalet Nursery a couple years ago. There's supposed to be a mix of blue and white flowers, but so far the only ones that I've had flower are the white variety. So that is what's growing up here, and this is exactly what I did last year and probably exactly what I'll continue to do in the years going forward. Over here I have a shamrock red lantana, which I think looks like I could probably give it a little bit of water. This one I've probably been watering once every 4 to 5 days, and that seems to keep the lantana happy. Coming down here then to what's on the bottom of the cart. So here is a mix of 3 different plants. There were 4, but the phlox that I had in here did not make it. I don't know if I overfilled the pot or what, or actually I think I left, no, I don't see it in there anymore. I think whatever piece I left of it got pretty much swallowed up. So what is left is Truffula Pink Gomphrena, which I am a huge Gomphrena lover, but it's my first year growing this one, and I really, really love it. Then we have the Superbena Sparkling Rosé, which is really pretty. This is my first year also growing Superbena. I love it. It has stayed pretty much constantly in bloom, so I definitely want to have some more Superbena in my garden in the years going forward. And then over here I have the A Romance Pink Nemesia, very pretty pink light flowers. So I actually ended up loving this mix a lot. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I love it all together. Then coming in here, I have another one of my favorite Supertunias that are going to be new for 2024. This is the Supertunia Saffron Finch. I like how it's buttery yellow on the outside, bright yellow on the inside. I just absolutely love that contrast. Now, because it is on the edge of this cart and there's shade in the back, you can see it's tending to grow forward, but that's honestly exactly what I want it to do. I wanted this to look like a cart that was just draped in flowers, that maybe someone was selling flowers at a market, and I really loved how it's turned out. Then over here, I have a Superbells Double Redstone. So they're actually starting to get a little bit more orangey, but they were more of a deeper red with the yellow outline. Every time I see it, it just reminds me of McDonald's because of the McDonald's logo. So I don't know if this is my favorite color combo, but I really do love all of the Superbells double flowers that I have in my garden. And speaking of Superbells, this is the Superbells Double Vintage Coral. Love this one. I knew I would love this color. There's only one plant, I believe, potted in here, so it gets a pretty good size for one pot. I love the color. I definitely want to have this next year, but it's kind of orangey, corally in the center with like a pink outline around the petals. And then this one over here is the Superbells Double Ruby. Also absolutely in love with these flowers. So I definitely want to have more of the Superbells Double next year in my garden. Now this container on the side of my cart is looking a little bit tired. It could probably use a trim of the petunias and a hit of bloom boosting fertilizer, but I still love it. This is another one of the Supertunia Mini Vista Scarlet. I think I put 2 plants in here, and I'm pretty sure because of that, they swallowed up a 3rd plant that was in here, which was, let's see if I can even find it, but it was the Safari Dawn James Britannia. Not sure where that has ended up, but also back here, which are not currently in their prime, but I still really love them. This is the Bright Lights Horizon Sunset Osteosperma. So these have, here's a better looking flower, these have orange on the outside, they are purple on the inside, and they kind of have a little bit of iridescence on the petals. So I really love these. I don't think I would plant this pot this way in the future, but I think this was kind of like a thrown together, these are the plants I have left, let's find a place for them in the garden. And then this is my larger of the 2 morning glories. This pot only has 1 in it, which I did 2 last year, glad I only did 1 this year. Tomato cage for support, and then growing up the top of the cart. I always forget about this poor little fern that I tucked here. It was originally on the back deck, but there was too much sun, so now it's just tucked in the shadiest corner here on the front deck. But I mean, it's looking pretty good. It looks much better than the one that I'm trying to keep happy inside. So this is basically the only full shade spot, I would say, in the garden, because it's blocked by the wall and this chair. And this fern's just living its best life. Over to my herb rack now. So I have the 2 Rockin' the Blues salvias on the end. And then I have some herbs that I definitely need to harvest on. I haven't been keeping up on my herbs very well this year because, like I mentioned in my what's not doing very well video, I've had either herbs that are stunted or herbs that just didn't look very healthy ever since I got them into the pots. But some are doing well. Here I have oregano, pineapple sage, regular sage, mint, julep. This is one of them that's just kind of looked unhealthy, although it's starting to look a little bit better, but I've kind of let that go flower for pollinators, but probably should harvest some of that. I have chives, regular thyme. This is another one, my lemon balm, which just hasn't looked that great this year. My dill, which is for the caterpillars, except the caterpillars keep getting eaten by the wasps, so that's fine. Then I have over here lemon thyme in the back there, chocolate mint, which this is my overall favorite herb, that and the pineapple sage, so both of those have been doing well, so that at least makes me happy. Then there's a Thai basil right in there that, despite getting shade from the salvia, I probably should move it to the side, still doing really well. Over here I have parsley up top, rosemary on the bottom. Yeah, maybe I'll spend some time tonight after the pollinators go to sleep harvesting some of these. Then coming around over to this side of the deck, in this far corner here, I have my 2 raspberry bushes. They're not producing a ton of berries right now, although I think I will have another harvest before the season is over. I have this pot here which had my blueberry in it that I eventually got rid of. I am going to keep this pot as a houseplant pot after the season, but right now in here I have a blanket flower, a star flower, and a floss flower, and I really like how that color combination turned out. Then I have my aqua pot here, and I did have a coneflower. You can kind of see a little of the remnants there, but it got completely taken over by all of the other plants. So I'm going to see kind of how that one does, I guess, the rest of the season. If so, I'll probably move it into a different bed to overwinter. But I have the same Prism Pink Lemonade Super Bells, 2 of the A Romance Mulberry Nemesias, and then I have 2 of the Unplugged Pink Salvias. Both of my aquapots in general have done really well, so I fill them up once a week. When I first planted them, I did add granular fertilizer both into the soil and into the water reservoir, and then I've just been fertilizing it with my regular annuals on a weekly basis, and they look really healthy. I'm very excited about the aquapots and what I can do with them in the future. Probably gonna get some more too. Then in the bed behind it, this is always one of my favorites. So once I figure out something that I like, I just kind of continue doing that. So this bed has had Gomphrena in it for, I believe this is the 3rd year now. And I have a mix here of a few different varieties. This one, this darker pink, is QIS Carmine. The kind of medium pink right here is Raspberry Cream. This is Audrey Purple. It's kind of like a purpley fuchsia tone. And then I have QIS Orange. I think it's pretty obvious which one that is. And then the lightest one right here is QIS Pink. I do love the color combinations that I have right now. I am missing, I had a red one last year, which was, I think it was Strawberry Fields. So I do have seeds for that next year because I do miss that pop of red, but I really love how full this bed is. Then down here in the front, I have Supertunia. I believe this one is Supertunia Fuchsia. Let me see if I have the tag here. Oh, I had the Super Bells Double Yellow. I already know that one's that. Oh, no, I'm wrong. Supertunia Royal Magenta. So this one is Supertunia, not Supertunia Vista. So it's not quite as vigorous as the bubblegum, but still pretty close. And then the double yellow right there in the center, which has stayed, pretty small and compact, but at least it's still there and not completely overtaken by either the gomphrena or the petunias. So this, again, I just love all of the color in this bed. Coming around the corner then is where we kind of start my veg area. Well, first, I have my strawberry plant down there. There's actually 2 in this pot. I think one I overwintered, and one, did I replace it or was it a runner? I can't remember, but there's 2 different plants in this container. Then I have my ground cherry, which I accidentally knocked the drip out of, so I thought it might be dead, but I watered it and it's doing great. I've harvested a lot from this. I am intrigued by it. It was my first year trying it. I don't know if I love the fruit enough to keep it in my garden, because having a smaller space means that I have to, make decisions on what I want to put in here or not. And I don't know if I love this enough to keep it, but we'll see. Then over here I have my sun dipper tomatoes, which I've already started harvesting from. They definitely just started kicking off, I'd say, in the last week. They are ripe when they are orange. So there's a bunch in here that I can see are ready to harvest. And then I also have a basil plant right in front. Another one of the ground cherries that is taken over by the tomato plant. So it's not as big and vigorous, but I am still getting a few of the ground cherries to harvest off of that one. Next to it, I have my giant Benary zinnia mix. So this was a mix of the giant Benary zinnias. I didn't know what colors were going to pop up. I think so far I've had white, pink, true orange. I think that one back there, the very far corner, is red. So those are the colors I ended up with this year. It's always a surprise, which for someone who really likes to have control, it's actually surprisingly nice. Now on this side, before we keep going down this little path, is my one rhubarb that was kind of stunted this year. It still came back, doesn't look too terrible, just much fewer leaves than it normally has. And then I have the other aqua pot, which ended up being one of the last containers I planted. So I happen to have a lot of the red plants left on hand, but I really love how it turned out. So it's Rockin' Red Dianthus, 2 of the Luscious Citrus Lantana, another one of the Double Ruby, Double Vintage Coral Super Bells, and another of the Supertunia Mini Vista Scarlet. But everything in my aqua pots has looked really healthy this whole season. Then I have 2 bags of peppers. This first one here is my bell pepper, which I definitely need to harvest from, and then my jalapeno peppers back there, which I made a really delicious cream cheese jalapeno dip. I was scraping the seeds out of the jalapenos with my fingers and realized you really need to scrub your fingers before you touch your eyes. So that was a fun experience to figure out, but I still have a lot more there for me to harvest. Now I'm going to go around the other side to catch up with the other plants. Now behind my jalapeno pepper is my Roma tomato. So this one's determinate, so it stayed much smaller, but easier to control size-wise. Also, the fruit on these should ripen all around the same time versus the sun dipper, which is indeterminate, so those I kind of just harvest as time goes on. But it's my first determinate tomato, and I'm excited to see how it does. So far, no signs of any issues or diseases, so that's been really nice, because I have had issues in the past with anything really larger than a cherry tomato size fruit having a lot of diseases and often not able to eat the fruit that I grow. So that's been a nice change. Then I have one more pepper plant here. This is the chocolate cherry candy cane pepper plant, which I've harvested a few from. I'm going to leave probably most of these on until they start to turn red, but I basically get this pepper plant because it's pretty. I have the duplicate of the other pot with the Supertunia Hoopla Vivid Orchid. Did the same thing with the begonia there, which looks a little sad and haggard, but we'll see how that goes over the next few days. Above that is this raised bed, which I have mixed feelings on. So my original plan for this bed was to grow all native flowers, and so I ordered a seed packet that was called Midwest Wildflowers, assuming that that meant they were wildflowers native to the Midwest. Turns out it does not mean that. I noticed it as the flowers actually started to grow, and I was like, I'm pretty sure cosmos, for example, aren't native here. Now, I do love how it looks. This is my favorite version I've ever done of this raised bed. Last year I had straw flower, which were really tall, not very thick, and just kind of looked, I don't know, a little bit off. But I love the surprises in this bed that pop up, the mixture of the plants. It was mostly cornflower for a while, then the cosmos started to take over. So I appreciate it. I think there's actually a milkweed back there too. It just wasn't what I was going for. So I don't know if I'm going to change it next year. I mean, it's going to be hard because there's a lot of seeds in there. I don't know if I'm going to make it just all natives, slowly add in more natives over time, but at least it's full of color. And then I have the Supertunia Vista Jazzberry there on the end. And then in the middle, I forgot the name of this one. I believe this is a new one for 2024. Let me find the tag in here somewhere. Oh, did I put it right up front? Yes, Supertunia Mini Vista Ultra Marine. So it's a very, very deep purple, tending towards a blue-purple color. But these flowers, so my petunias in here definitely did not take off as much as the other beds. I think because there's so many other plants in here, all of the other wildflowers, that it's definitely had to compete more for the nutrients. But overall, I like it, even though it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Coming down here, I have 2 dahlias. I had the same 2 on the other side. This is the one that just hasn't grown, but also refuses to look like it's dead. So while I'm assuming that it probably is close to death since it hasn't put on any growth, I'm leaving it. This was a Penhill watermelon because I grew Penhill watermelon 2 years ago and it did not look like it was supposed to. So I was going to try it again and see if it looked different, but I guess I'll just never know. And then next I have American Dawn, and this one does have buds. I've had a couple blooms. Unfortunately, it's not blooming right now, but I will either put a photo or video of what the blooms look like. They're really pretty. They're like a mix of kind of orangey, pinky, purpley, which has kind of been my vibe, I feel like, this year in the garden. In front of this raised bed, I have 2 bags of potatoes, which are the only plants that I'm happy they're dying because that's what they're supposed to do when they are close to being ready to harvest. So once these plants die all the way back, I mean, I've still been watering them and everything, but as soon as all the foliage is died back, I will be able to harvest potatoes. It's my first year ever growing potatoes. I know they work really well in grow bags, so I'm excited to see how it does. I don't know if it's something we'll do again next year, but it has been nice to try out this year. Now onto this bed. So this is my lowest of my 4 wooden raised beds that I have out here, but I do like that contrast because I can add in taller plants. Now, unfortunately, these bloomed beautifully in July, and by the time I was ready to do the tour for August, all the petals fell off thanks to some wind and storms. But I'll put up here a video of them kind of in their prime. This is my only problem with sunflowers, is that I don't really have enough space to succession plant a lot of them, and they don't stay in bloom for very long. So if I wasn't going to turn these into a trellis very soon, I probably wouldn't do sunflowers at all in my garden, even though I do love them very much. But these are the Sunrich Summer Provence sunflowers, so they're single stem, but I think you can see here, once the main bloom starts to die, little tiny flowers start to open up. So it's really pretty. Now, as far as what else is growing in this bed, this is the Supertunia Vista Fuchsia in that corner and that corner. I have a Super Bells Double Orange, which is a really pretty orange color. It's more corally with some pink mixed in. I don't think it started like that, but whatever color it's kind of faded to right now, I really love. I also have the mystery seed here. I'm going to do a longer video on everything about it, but I don't think anyone guessed the very specific type of flower it was, but a lot of people were close. So this is actually Mexican tarragon, which is a member of the marigold family. So a lot of people thought the seeds were marigolds as the plant grew. It didn't look like a marigold, but they are in the same family. So it's an herb, and I've already harvested some of it. Should probably come in and harvest a little bit more, but I am really excited about it because I've never grown anything like this before. It's definitely something that's new to me, and I probably will grow it again next year. I also have Status in here that I've been harvesting from. You can see this is kind of the next round of blooms it's been putting out. I really love Status. I don't think I gave it enough space in my garden this year, but it's similar to Gomphrena where it dries almost the exact same as how it looks fresh. So that's currently everything we have happening in this bed right here. I have another pot of 3 of the pink Truffula Gomphrena. These I all started from the actual plants themselves, whereas in the main bed with my other Gomphrena, those I started from seed. Then here I have the same American Dawn dahlia with some blooms on it. Now this one is also the Penhill watermelon. It's getting larger, so it hasn't just completely stopped growing, but it hasn't put out any flowers yet, but maybe sometime before the end of the season I'll get to see something. It's been a very interesting year for dahlias. Now, speaking of interesting, this is the current situation with my pumpkin. So I decided to pull the tomato that I'm pretty sure had some sort of virus, and then I flopped this up on the cage so that I could get it off the floor, so that apparently I could just leave my hose line on the floor. But it's worked well so far, surprisingly. So let me show you though what's going on. I've tried pumpkin once or twice before in my garden, and like with most melon plants, I'll end up getting some sort of virus that kills the vine before I've really gotten the fruit. But there is one pumpkin. So this cage right now is very tilted. I'm holding it up with pots and saucers because I am an expert gardener. We have some more pineapple sage back there, which is doing really great with some more room to grow. There's a strawberry plant that's getting buried down there, so we'll just kind of see how that does. But then here is another pumpkin. I'm so excited. If I can get even just one pumpkin, but it looks like I'm gonna get 2, I'll be so happy. Again, it takes up a lot of room. I don't know if I'll do it in the future, but for having it now, I'm really excited. And that is everything that I'm growing on my front deck. This has been my favorite year, which that's always my goal, to make each year in my garden my favorite. One of my main goals was to have more color, and I'm pretty sure I succeeded in that. Definitely more flower heavy this year than I have been in other years, but I love it so much that I can't imagine having fewer flowers. So with limited space, it's going to be interesting. But this is what we're looking like in August. So just a couple more months of this beautiful garden. So that is how my garden is looking at the beginning of August. In the next video, I'll tour you around the back deck, and I'll also link down below the previous month's playlist just in case you want to see how the garden transforms from month to month. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.